Hi there, my name is Matt Mormon. I'm a National Account Manager with TCI, and this is the online webinar orientation for field test teachers in Green Bay. If you're watching this, you've been selected to field test TCI resources for 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. The middle school programs work pretty much the same way. So this is a webinar that's designed to help you get logged on, get into your teacher resources, figure out where to find everything. This is not going to be a content-driven webinar. So it doesn't matter if we have teachers that teach ancient history or world geography or U.S. history in the same webinar. That's totally fine. I'm not gonna talk a lot of content. If I do, it will just be in the context of using it as an example. Before we begin, a little bit about myself. I am a middle school teacher. I'm no longer in the classroom, but I used TCI Geography Alive and History Alive for the United States history in my school district back in Michigan, where I live. I became a TCI teacher consultant for TCI in 2003, and then did that for a few years, and then left the classroom in 2008 to work for TCI full-time. My role at TCI is to help teachers implement the TCI approach and programs in their classroom. I do professional development, I do sales, and I am a great resource, I guess, if you need to talk to me about implementing this with middle school teachers. I have a lot of experience with middle school with TCI, so I'll be sure to provide my contact information at the end of this webinar. What I want to do today with you guys, I'll go over the agenda with you real quickly here. We're going to start with a little bit of a crash course in TCI, our pedagogy, which we call the TCI approach. I am going to, it's important because we're not a traditional program. We're not a traditional publisher. We are very much a hands-on, student-centered approach. It's not just a textbook, answer the questions at the end of the chapter kind of approach here. The next thing that we have to do, and I want to get into that very quickly because that's where that's what you want to know. That's the reason that you're here. So is to get you signed on to your teacher resources. All of the teacher resources are online. So we do provide print materials. We have print textbooks and consumable workbooks for students if you want the consumable workbook. But as far as the teachers go, the teacher resources are online. They're digital, they're web-based, they're platform agnostic. So we'll focus on how to get you signed in. I'm going to spend a good part of this time in the teacher subscription showing you how you'll use that resource to plan, and then also how to deliver. You're going to use the subscription to also teach. It's a teaching tool, it's a planning tool. And then, of course, you're going to probably have questions about your students. And so we will wrap up our conversation talking about the student subscriptions and what those look like and how you can use those in the classroom and how you'll get your students logged on. So let's start by going to the TCI webpage here. If I can get the right tab open. There we go. Okay. Our website is www.teachtci.com. When you go there, there is a whole lot of information that's going to be very, very helpful to you. I would start with the TCI Resource Center, resources for materials for review. Under there, you're going to see correlations. We've done the correlations to the Wisconsin standards. We've done the correlations to the C3 framework. The correlations are all here clumped in at once, or they're divided out by individual standards and individual lessons when you're in your teacher resources. So I will show you that in a few minutes. We have great webinars that we've recorded. If you want to go in and see, classroom management strategies, setting up ideas for setting up the notebook, assessment stuff, really take advantage of the resources that we've got here under the webinars. But I want to start our conversation today. And for those of you who are not familiar with TCI or haven't used TCI before, what is TCI? TCI stands for Teachers Curriculum Institute. We're a K-12 social studies publisher. We're all teachers. We're all social studies teachers. So it's very much for teachers by teachers. We were sick of the status quo. kids sitting in nice little neat rows, reading boring textbooks and answering chapter review questions. We want kids thinking, we want them problem solving, we want them up, moving around, collaborating with their peers, and being creative. So we have, and you can find this information that I'm showing you here at our website, but we have a research-based pedagogy we call the TCI approach, and it is fantastic. And every lesson that we write, every program that we write incorporates the TCI approach into it. You can see a little bit of the theory and research behind it right here. If you want to come back and learn more about this, you can dive into more about understanding by design or more about the multiple intelligences. We have a 5-minute video you can watch on the TCI approach here. To get there, again, you're just going to go to our website. What is TCI? The drop down, and it's all under the theories and strategies in that left nav bar. Very easy to find. Every single chapter that your students are going to do is going to have a main activity in it. Yes, there's going to be reading, there's going to be writing, they're going to answer questions, of course, but there is an activity that pulls it all together. Something that is a constructivist learning experience for your students to get them from just passively sitting and getting social studies to moving into doing social studies. To do that, we have 6 different teaching strategies that we use throughout our programs. We don't want students doing the same thing over and over again. So you might be studying a lesson on ancient Sumer, and in one chapter in that unit on ancient Sumer, your students will be archaeologists who are going in and finding artifacts left behind by ancient Sumer and analyzing them and trying to figure out what they reveal. They've just studied the 8 characteristics of a civilization. So is this clay tablet that talks about how much grain a citizen is supposed to get, does it show evidence of a highly sophisticated civilization? And why? They might then also participate in the next chapter in a debate, a class debate, where you give them a series of situations and problems they have to solve, and then they have to pick the best solution and justify it in a class debate to other groups in their class. So those 2 examples, one was a social studies skill builder, and the other was a response group strategy. So those 6 strategies are used throughout the whole program, and that is where the bulk of your teaching comes from. So very, very important. So when you're in your lesson plans and you're looking, you'll see things like visual discovery, experiential exercise, writing for understanding, and so forth at the beginning. It just means that we're aiming at a different set of learning styles for that particular lesson. And in that particular chapter, we're going to have the students practice different skills: speaking and listening, reading and writing, experiencing like experiential exercise where they're making connection to emotional or physical things from history as well. All important. Lesson elements. Real quick, I just want to give a crash course in this, and then we're going to jump right into the subscription. Every chapter that you do with your students, we call a lesson because the chapter was written to unfold the way a good lesson should. So the first thing in every chapter is a preview assignment. It can be anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes in length. The preview assignment will help your students make a connection from their prior knowledge to the new abstract you're going to introduce to them. The reading and writing happen around the considerate text and the graphic organizers. 2 very important pieces here. The considerate text, we're referring to our textbook or our online subscription for students. Our text is written so that the information can easily be accessible to students. They can get it. It's not just a huge encyclopedia-sized bunch of fluff. It's inviting, and it's a great tool for struggling readers who are having a difficult time with expository text. There is a very important element to this program called the Interactive Student Notebook. We have a whole section, a whole tab, and a whole webinar on that. But basically, we use Robert Marzano's note-taking strategies of using sophisticated graphic organizers to help students chunk, classify, and organize information. And how we do that is we have the students have a book. It can be something that they create on their own, or you can get the consumable workbook from TCI, or you can have your students do it digitally for free online. But the Interactive Student Notebook is where the students keep track of all of their reading notes and all of their activity notes based around these graphic organizers. Very, very important part of the program. So we'll be talking more about this as I take you through the teacher resources. At the end of each lesson, there is an end of an assignment, a very authentic assignment that we call a processing assignment. And that's where students have to put in all that declarative and procedural knowledge from your lesson and create or do something, show mastery with it. It's what they do right before they take the more formative assessment, which we have plenty of formative assessment tools that I'll be going through with you in the subscription so that you can see how that works. Well, with that, let's get into signing in and getting a teacher subscription. So why do I call them subscriptions? Let's look at the subscription features really quickly before we dive in. Let's just look at Ancient World, History Alive, the Ancient World, and subscription features. A teacher subscription is going to consist of a classroom presentation, your assessment tools, the ability to share files and message your students, differentiation, and all these common core activities and state standard correlations. Student subscriptions have the student text, the interactive notebook, and a variety of different assessment tools, like, for instance, this formative assessment tool called the Reading Challenge. They're subscriptions because they don't last forever. Our subscriptions can be 1, 3, 6, 5, 10, 8 years. It really doesn't matter, as long as it's set up in advance. You pay for the subscription, and your district gets all the updates, all the changes, all the improvements to technology while you're under that subscription. And then when your subscription is up, you have the choice to renew and continue or not with TCI. So every pilot teacher is going to need to have their own teacher subscription, because without it, you can't access the resources. So hopefully you were given a unique code that will help you set up your teacher subscription. I have the code here with me, so if you don't have it, you can write it down and use it this way. So when you're at our website, again, I'm going to go to the main part here. You're just going to go up to the top where it says teacher sign in, and you can see my credentials are already in there. Don't worry about that. You're going to have to the very first time you come here, you will have to click the green Create Account button. So I will do that now. And access code. To be put in my demo as your account manager, to be put in my demo, there is a unique ID code, and it is 61SF1PV. That is a unique code that will put you in the Matt Mormon School District. Eventually, if you end up getting TCI for Green Bay, you will have a unique ID that's just specific to Green Bay, and we'll move you over there later. But this is a code that puts you in my school district. After you put the unique code in, you need to put your email in. So let's say your email is tci@tci.com. That's an email. It's not your email, but let's pretend that it is. Okay. And then you put your first name in, last name, and then come up with a password that you can remember. You'll need that password each time you log in. They're going to ask you to put the password in twice to confirm, and they are going to ask you to agree to the TCI terms. Pretty simple there. So I'm just going to make sure I have everything filled out. I have my TCI unique access code. This gets me linked to my school district. In your case, it's Field Test Teachers again. You're linked to the Matt Mormon School District. You're not really in Green Bay, but you will be later, hopefully. You put your school district email. It's very important that I have your school district email. If I see Gmails and Yahoos, they tend to get deleted. So make sure it's a valid Green Bay official email so that you are not taken out of there by mistake. First name, last name, whatever password you want, and click sign up. And I got to do it again because, of course, my passwords didn't match. So sometimes that will happen. If you just slightly type the wrong thing in, I must have, it will make you do it all over again. Okay, hopefully my passwords match this time, and they do. Okay, great. So once I've gotten to this page, this means that I am, I have a teacher account. I have a profile, excuse me, set up with TCI, but I don't have my program yet. I don't have my subscription. I have to do that. So you don't have to worry about adding the free trial. A free trial is something that goes away in 30 days. You can go ahead. I want you to add a full program, something that you can have for the rest of the year so that you have it while you're making these decisions and having conversations with colleagues about TCI. So you're going to click this add program. Now, it's going to be a little overwhelming because when you do that, you're going to have access to every single program that TCI has. First grade science, you don't need that. So I will show you the ones that you need for your field test. And don't get too carried away with the grades. I'm a Michigan teacher, and so my grades that are on here are set up based on the grades that people do in Michigan. So 7th grade is going to get Geography Alive for middle school. Don't grab the one for high school, but grab the one for middle school. Even though it says grade 6, don't worry about that. Click Add Program. If you're teaching 8th grade, don't worry about the grade 6 part, but 8th grade is supposed to be getting History Alive, the Ancient World. I think that's what you're field testing. You may also want to field test for 6th grade. I'm trying to remember. 6th grade is going to field test Social Studies Alive, America's Past. And they're going to look at History Alive, the United States through Industrialism, which was made for more for 8th grade. That's what they use it for in Michigan. So I'm going to grab one of these. I'm going to grab the Ancient World one just as an example here. I'm going to click Add Program, and you will see a quick video pop up that is just kind of like a tutorial for you. If you're going to sit through this webinar, which is going to last about 30 minutes, then you will not have to worry about watching this video, and you can just get rid of that. If you need to add more programs, you can continue to add more on there. All right. Your middle school teacher, so it tells you that there's 174 student subscriptions available. If you need more than that, let me know right away because I can add more student subscriptions in here. That's not a problem. But there's 174 available. You're probably going to want to set up your class first. So let's do that. Let's set up my classes. Let's pretend that I teach 4 block hours of ancient history to, say, 8th grade. Okay. So I'm going to click Add Classes. And we've already created a class for you. It's called the Ancient World. So what I would do is I recommend that you change the name of that class so it means something more to you. We just call it that because that's the name of the program, History Alive, the Ancient World. So right here, you can click on this little box icon and you can click Edit Class Name. And I'm just gonna change this to 8th grade history, and it's period. And then I'm gonna add another class. I'm gonna add a second class. And I'll call this 8th grade history, and this will be period 2. And I'll add another class, very simple, 8th grade history, period 3. And we'll do, let's say I have planning period. I have my planning hour is period 4. So this will be period 5. I don't have a 4th hour block. Perfect. Okay. Now, when I want to add students, we're going to talk about adding students at the end of this webinar. But when I want to add students, I can just come right here and there, click Add Student. And there's 4 ways to get my students on. It will tell you that there's 175 subscriptions. Again, if you need more than that, please let me know because I can dump more subscriptions in there. Okay, so let's get into the teaching part of it. So I'm going to click Home, and I have my subscription set up, my classes set up in my subscription, and I'm ready to teach. I'm ready to start planning. So you're going to click Teach Now, and it will take you to your program. This is what it looks like for History Alive, the Ancient World. If I wanted to see what it looked like for Geography Alive for 7th grade, I can simply go in and add a program. And now I have 2 programs added, and I will click Geography Alive, and it looks the same. So again, the content is not as important. All of these resources at the top are identical. So take a good look at Geography Alive at the top. There's your, all your tools. I can bounce in and out of that, and it's the same thing. So it works the same way. All of this is the same for you guys. All right, so let's say I want to teach a lesson. Well, let's use ancient Sumer. We were talking about ancient Sumer. So the rise of Sumerian city-states, chapter 4 in the program, basically. So I click on that, and everything that I need now to teach for on ancient Sumer is right here. There's a lesson highlight video of a teacher explaining to me in about a minute or less what's going to happen. I have a tab that has my procedures. I have my presentation, my materials, assignments, assess book, and my grade book, okay? The presentation is probably the most important part of this, and that's why as soon as you click on a chapter, you end up on the presentation page. So if I click this presentation right here, it's going to open up a new window, and it's going to start downloading a flash presentation that I can use to teach for my class. Now that is changing for some of you. The ancient world and the History Alive, the United States, those programs are under a revision right now, and we're going to change a little bit about how we do the presentation. But this is the way the presentation is set up right now. Now, what is this presentation and why is it so important? It's kind of like a PowerPoint. It has any videos that are needed, any audio tracks that are needed, any visuals, guided questions, everything that you need to run a simulation is all in that presentation. So this is a very important teaching tool. It's going to make using the TCI resources with your students incredibly easy. So you'll want to go through. What I usually do when I come here for the first time is I just kind of click through the presentation a few times, just kind of read it over and see what it's all about and what the kids are supposed to do. Now you can tab back over to your subscription and then click under more and go to procedures. And that will give you your actual step-by-step procedures for the lesson. So this chapter has a preview that's going to take about 10 minutes. Vocabulary development is going to take about 40 minutes. We don't really tell you how long the reading will take. The reading is actually embedded, in this case, into this particular chapter. It takes 140 minutes to do this activity. There are natural breaks. The actual activity is broken into 3 phases. Each phase would last about a class period long. The reading's embedded into that, and then the processing assignment is only 20 minutes. You may want to pare down this lesson or go deeper. So we do have quicker coverage and deeper coverage options for you. So let's say you want to see what the actual activity is going to be. Drill down in there, and those are the steps to doing it. But this can be a little bit, I guess, overwhelming. You know, you're reading, it says, project transparency 4A, ask these questions. You don't have to worry about that because all of those questions and all those visuals, those are already embedded into your presentation, okay? So material-wise, when you need to get your materials, you'll have a couple choices here. You'll click on materials. It knows you're in chapter 4 already, the interactive student notebook. For your pilot, you'll have 2 choices for the interactive student notebook. Choice number 1 would be to use a print version of it. So if you want to use the print version of it, you're just going to go to materials. You're going to click view and print. You're going to get a choice to pull up the PDF. And this is the interactive notebook for this chapter. The students have their essential question at the top. It's got the preview. It's got the reading notes for doing the activity. There's 3 phases of that. And then it's got your summary at the end. And it's got the processing assignment, writing assignment, and the reading further assignment that goes with it. So there's about 8 pages there that you would have to run off. If you don't want to use a consumable, if you want to have your students doing this all online, let's go in and look at a student subscription real quick. We're going to bounce back and forth a little bit. But in your teacher edition, you have a little icon at the top here that says Student View. You click on Student View, you get a window into student subscription, and including the interactive notebook, the digital notebook here. So I'm going to click on the digital notebook, and you can see that this is what it would look like to do this assignment online. And let's compare to what it would look like to do it in print. So in print, the students read the prompt and use a pencil or a pen and draw and write. Online, they read the prompt and they type answers in, okay? If they don't want that there, they can move it around, move their answers around. And then, of course, they can use the drawing tools and or add shapes as well. So there's an awful lot that they can do in the notebook. They can even change the colors. save their answers, and you go in and grade that and can see that later. So again, we're going to come back and talk about that more, but you're going to want to decide which format you're going to use in the notebook. Are you going to use the online? Are you going to use the print? Maybe you're going to use both. That's totally fine. So I'm going back into teacher view now. So I'm back in my materials, and there's my notebook. Visuals I don't need because it's already in the presentation. Guide to reading notes, that's just your teacher answers, and then everything's in Spanish. So it's very, very simple. I mean, everything is right there. So I've already shown you the table of contents tab, presentation tab, the materials tab. Make sure I get back in chapter 4 there. There's not much else. There's the assignments and the assessments in the grade book. So assignments, if you want to assign a chapter to your students to read or do the notes, you can. You only have to do this if you have your settings set up so that students may not view the text online prior to it being assigned. If you don't have that set up that way, then you don't ever have to come here and worry about that. Okay. Assessment tab. The assessment tab, you have formative assessment options and summative assessment options. Okay. Formative assessment options, we're thinking the interactive notebook is a great tool for that, and also the game-like reading challenge. So let's bounce into the student subscription one more time and just look at what the reading challenge is for a second. So going back into the student subscription, you'll see that there's a reading challenge tab on the top. If I click on that, it happens to be like Jeopardy for this case. The games are all different. Not every chapter is Jeopardy. But this is a comprehension quiz based on what the students should have read. So when they get a question, they can use the magnifying tool. They answer the question, get it wrong. They get one more attempt at it. Get it wrong a second time, that's answered, no points. Next question, they get right, they get a full point, and it keeps track. Why this is important is because it's a great review game for students. They like playing it. It's a fantastic way for them to study up and review. But you see on your end all kinds of data showing you what your students do and do not understand. And that can be a very powerful tool for you as you go into your grade book. Now, I don't think I have any students in here right now. So let me just very quickly, for fun here, bounce into one of my more active programs that has a where I do have students actually logged in, and I can show you my grade book. So I'm going to go in here. This is another one of our programs. This is not one you'll be using, but I'm going to click on my grade book here, and you can see that I have students in here. Okay. So had I had my students do the reading challenge, I can go in and view trends, and it would show me the percentage of every single question in that reading challenge for what my kids got, my students got on it. And then, of course, what's great about that is I can export that data to a CSV and import it into my real official gradebook. Okay. So, yeah. So let me go back and sign back in again real quick. Get the right password. Okay. We were in the ancient world, and we were looking at chapter 4. And we were talking gradebook and assessment. Now, the other assessment tools besides the formative assessment tools are your summative assessment tools. So you can give an assessment just the way we wrote it. So here's the English version of the TCI assessment. It's pretty basic. The chapters are quick. So unless you really want to be giving a giant assessment every week to week and a half, I would probably use these more like quizzes and perhaps then give an assessment, like a bigger assessment at the end of a unit instead. But you can see that there's about 15 or so multiple choice questions. There's a couple document-based questions where students have to look at a prompt, answer some questions, short answer. Then there's an essay question where they have to explore the essential question. If you like the way that is and you don't want to make any changes to it, you can just print that off. But if you want to give an online assessment or modify our assessment in some way, you can use our create your own tools down here. So create a printable assessment works the same way as creating an online assessment. So I'm just going to create an online one. Let's say we want to create an assessment that has 2 chapters for like a unit exam. Chapters, let's say 4 and 5. So I'm going to call this Unit 2 and save and continue. And the first thing that I get is I see that I have to begin, I have to add questions from a question bank or create my own. So I can create my own questions. I can create drawing questions, open-ended questions, multiple choice questions, any kind of questions I want, really. The open-ended ones take care of everything that's not on the list. I can create teacher questions. I can use questions that other teachers have generated in a teacher bank. You can also submit to that as well. So, and then I can use the same TCI questions. So I think it's easiest to use the TCI questions first. So there they all are. These are the same questions I just showed you. So if you're happy with all of those, you just click select all and add them to your assessment. So now they're in there, okay? Once they're in here, I can reorder them if I want to. I can delete questions I don't want. I can go in and edit questions that I think need to be changed up a little bit. Maybe TCI didn't word them the way I want them to be worded. I can change the distractors as well. And I can then go and add questions from another chapter by simply clicking add TCI question, go up here, change the chapter. Now I get a whole new list of questions. These are the chapter 5 questions that I can add. And then, of course, I want to add a teacher question. So these are, tells you where the teacher's from. So this question was written by a teacher in Washington. This one from a teacher in Florida. This one, California. Let's add one from Illinois in there too. Why not? So I just added 4 teacher questions to my assessment. And now I'm going to go and create my own. And I'm going to do a drawing one. Multiple choice and open-ended are pretty simple. I'm going to create a drawing one. And I want my students to do this. Here's something that they have to have in it. Okay, just some gibberish there. This is a sample answer. And then do I want to share this question with other teachers? Probably not. I could have a map or a prompt put in there as well. Save it. It's in there. I can then preview my online assessment. Take a look at what it looks like. It's a lot of multiple choice. There's some VBQs, some short answers, more multiple choice, a couple short answers. There's my drawing question. And when I'm ready to show students that, then I would, let's go back. I can assign it. Or I can share that assessment with other teachers in my department too if I want. But I'll click assign. And then I come down here. It's all create until I get to chapter 4 because that's where I created that. Click assign. Unit 2 is the name. Make it due today, and it's live for my students, and they can take the assessment. Okay. That pretty much goes through most of the basic features. Now, some additional features that you can be found under the More tab. You may be interested in finding your correlations to the Wisconsin standards or the C3 framework. So as long as you're in a chapter, you click on correlations. It'll download them from the web. Now, I'm not a Wisconsin teacher, so these standards that you're about to see that are actually downloading right now are going to be from my state of Michigan. They're correlated to our 6th grade standards just because that's what Michigan does. But you can see that these are my standards that relate to the text for that section. These are my standards that relate to the activity. These are my standards that relate to the processing and so forth. And that's just for one chapter, okay? Other tools that you might want to use, you can message your students if you want. You can compose a new message to them. You can write it to each individual class or to all classes. You can differentiate. So again, if you need to make a modification to this lesson for English language learners, there's a couple ideas there. Maybe learners reading and writing below grade level. Maybe you want to do something for your advanced learners, okay? Enhancing learning, literature recommendations that you want. I mean, there's just some extra things that are in there. So you can go ahead and explore that. But as long as you, for the most part, know how to log into your subscription, pick a lesson, okay? So now we want to, daily life in ancient Egypt, let's say, okay? And then download the presentation and find your materials, you are probably in really, really good shape for the field test. So I just want to take the last couple minutes here of our presentation, or excuse me, our webinar, and I want to show you a little bit about what you can expect a TCI classroom to look like. So I'm going to go to the present mode here, and this is what my students would see when they come into class on a particular day when I was going to start this chapter. How did geographic challenges lead to the rise of city-states in Mesopotamia? Preview activity is the first thing that happens with every TCI lesson. It's just a way to tap into the students' prior knowledge. So they're going to complete the preview activity in their notebook, and then you can go over that with the class and discuss that with them. Introduce vocabulary terms, do a little bit of pre-reading. In this slide, it's asking the students to read the text and come up with some possible answers to the essential question. It's a pre-reading strategy. Now we get to the activity, the response group. In this particular lesson, students work in groups of 3 to take on the role of ancient Mesopotamians facing a series of problems from the Neolithic time period. For each problem, they learn about an issue and then do a little bit of background reading, just enough to be dangerous, and then they have to propose possible solutions to that problem and defend their opinion on it against members of other groups in the class that may have a different opinion. You'll set up the class, do a little reading notes, and then this is fantastic. You'll click on the MP3. A woman will start talking.
My fellow Mesopotamians, listen to me. We are all worried. We are all hungry.
Hopefully you guys can hear that in the webinar, but she goes through and gives them their, she introduces the problem to them, tells them what their choices are. You go over the choices again. They have 4 different choices of what they should do to stop food shortages in the hills of the Zagros Mountains. And then the students will debate that amongst themselves in teams of 3, decide what the best solution is, why it's the best solution, giving 2 specific examples of why it's the best solution, and then they will stand up and give their opinion to the class, and you will facilitate as a teacher a lively classroom debate with kids that are disagreeing. And then, of course, their curiosity is piqued, and they will want to find out more, and they will read to find out what happened, and they'll complete the notes either in their print notebook PDF that you run off for them, or in that consumable notebook. And then, of course, the other class member other days that happen, you will continue to do the rest of the lesson. It takes about 4 days to do this particular lesson, and then of course you can go to the assessment tools. That's for the most part about it. Now, what I do want to make sure, if you have questions, I need to have back over here. I want to make sure that you guys all have my name and email. So I know questions are going to come up throughout the field test. Beth is probably the person that you'll want to direct that to. But again, if you need to reach me, my email is mmoorman@teachtci.com. I want to thank you for doing this field test. I appreciate it. I'm hoping that I can get there and do some more professional development with you guys in person in the future once you get a little bit farther along in this field test process. Again, should you need anything from me, let me know. Beth will be getting the books, and she'll be getting the link to the subscription so that you can get that. And if you run out of student subscriptions, please let me know, because we can add more to your account at any time. Thank you very much for watching this online webinar, and have a great day. Bye-bye.